So I've previously been talking about the use of the intuition in Bodytalk so that we can work out exactly what is going on with the person and in fact get instructions on what to do with that. Now, this again, you have to take it a lot further because when I said you need to have structure and intuition for it to work perfectly or to work well, I really meant this. And of course, the way you're going to use the intuition will depend on what you're applying it to. Now, when we're applying it to healthcare, we have to develop structures and protocols and left brain concepts that are going to harness and focus the imagination into a powerful form of intuition so that it becomes reliable. And in Bodytalk, we do that in stages. In the early stages of Bodytalk, we do that by what we call establishing the yes and no. And that is, we simply learn to ask the body for a response that involves a yes and no. And that could be just a muscle feeling weak and a muscle feeling strong. It can be movements in the muscle. There are many ways you can do it. And in Bodytalk, we teach the appropriate way for different people. And in doing so, we can enable the body to respond to us in a positive or negative response, yes or no. Now, there's limitations to this because then you've got to put every question, it's got to be a question that requires a yes or no answer. And of course, that's limiting. It's like the old game of playing, 20 questions, and you can only get yes or no's, and you've got to find the solution. So we have to be smart about it. And that is why we have to learn in Bodytalk a series of questions that are highly focused and are going to get the information we want with the scope we want. And this is part of the more important parts of Bodytalk, is the development of what we call the protocol, which gives us all the questions to ask in the right sequencing that will make sure we cover the physical body, the physiology of the body, the emotional makeup, the psychological makeup, spiritual makeup, their environmental impact, their history, and so on. So the protocols are quite comprehensive. And the way they're arranged is they're arranged within systems and the relationship of systems, because the fundamental basis of the original development of Bodytalk was dynamic systems theory, based on the fact that everything is systems relating to other systems, or matrices, morphogenic fields that all interact. And it was my study of dynamic systems theory over many years that provided the foundation for me to put together the protocols that are dynamic systems theory applied to anatomy, physiology, energetic physiology, psychology, and so on. And in this way, we enable students to be able to work out comprehensive ways of understanding what needs to be done with the body to get it to function better, to get parts of the body to communicate better, to get better circulation between the parts of the body. And circulation and communication can be the nervous system, the blood system, the lymphatic system, it can be the meridian system, it can be the chakra system, it can be through the connective tissue and what we call the electrons and the proton currents that run through the body, and of course electromagnetic frequencies. Because the reality is, in the study of biophysics, and that's the physics of life, we have discovered that the body has many, many more communication systems than the classic ones we talk about in Western anatomy and physiology, such as nerves and blood. The reality is we're primarily much more an electrical circuit than anything else, with electromagnetic frequencies and so on, which can become disrupted. So one of the principles we hold in Bodytalk is that all the various stresses in life and all the different problems that have occurred that we've talked about earlier are all things that are disrupting all these circuits and all these communication systems. They're sort of it's like a big electrical circuit and circuit breakers blow, just like in your house. And one of the key factors, you've got to go and repair the circuit breaker. You've got to switch it back on. And fundamentally, that's a lot of what we're doing in Bodytalk. We're simply saying, okay, there's a diminished relationship between the hypothalamus and the thyroid gland, and as a result, there isn't the right flow of TSH down to the thyroid, so now the thyroid's not producing enough thyroxine, and we've got to improve that. And what we have found is that if we bring that into consciousness and and the innate says, yes, this is the problem, and these two have got to learn to communicate better, and we've got to get that function better, then by simply highlighting those two spots, by using our hands, for example, over the area, and then doing a process which I'll explain in more detail later, a tapping process, we activate the brain into, okay, this is a priority, this is something that's got to be done, and we correct it. So the brain will go about correcting it. So we're basically, in many cases, just raising awareness of what is going on so that the body can correct it. You see, one of the problems with health is the body is extremely complex. And very often it has lost track of what is actually going on. A great example is sort of in chronic viruses and chronic bacteria in the body. So many people have chronic fatigue, or what they call fibromyalgia and things like this, because they've got residual viruses, like an old flu. They got the flu, but they never quite got over it. And ever since they got the flu 2 years ago, they're still tired all the time, and achy joints and things like that, or more serious ones like Epstein-Barr and so on. Now, the thing about it is that our immune system is supposed to correct all this. But the immune system's got a big job. You've got to feel sorry for it. Do you realize how many bugs you have in the body? In fact, most people think, oh yeah, there'd be thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. No. The roughest estimate, I talked to Dr. Bruce Lipton about this, who's a world authority on it, and he pointed out that, if you've got 30 trillion cells, you have at least 10 bugs per cell. Okay, so what does that make it? 300 trillion. And there's more bugs between the cells than in the cells. So you're looking 500, 600 trillion bugs in your body. You see, you're not a human being, you're just a big walking bug bag. A seething mass of bugs. If you're phobic about germs and bugs, this is not something to listen to. Now, here's the crunch. Most of those bugs are good guys. They're there. They're part of the process. Digestion of food and all that type of thing doesn't occur unless there's bugs there to do it. Okay? Even your white cells are really bugs. They're living things that go and gobble up things. We think of them as white cells, but they're actually living little things. If you watch them, they're alive and they do their job. They're bugs. And there's good guys, but there's a lot of bad guys. And the trouble is, there's so many different bad guys and so many different types that you've got this army, the immune system, trying to work out the bad guys, and it can become very confusing. And with the immune system in the average person, because of stress levels and that, it's compromised anyway. It's under-functioning. And, or it's hyper-reactive and looking in all the wrong places because it's just looking for the very hostile things. You see, if you've heard about swine flu, for example, coming to town, your immune system's going to be focusing on swine flu. So it's not going to be focusing on old residual chronic bugs that are causing a lot of trouble. And this is what's happening with a lot of people. Or the immune system just doesn't target well. It doesn't target the right things because its database has been corrupted. That, when it's targeting things, it actually looks at shape, because every single bug, every single virus has a specific shape. And the immune system identifies by shape. And it actually has a database of shapes. Right? That's why when something exotic comes in like swine flu, it doesn't have it in the database. That's why it can be affected. So what we're doing with the protocol is we're finding out there's bugs in there that are specifically causing a problem, and we're refocusing the immune system to go for that bug. We're actually saying that the innate wisdom is saying, yeah, the immune system isn't getting it right, we've got to focus it. And we do it by actually taking saliva that contains the energy of all the bugs in the body, all the energy fields, putting it in a high energy matrix in the navel, and then by doing this process of tapping and that, which I'll talk about later, we're getting the immune system to refocus and retarget to those particular bugs that we're asking it to do. And as such, you'll get this immune reaction, and it'll kill off the bugs, and the fatigue or fibromyalgia will disappear. And it's just a case of using the in-depth knowledge of innate wisdom to redirect the functionings of the body so they do the job correctly.